Alrighty. Let's have a look, shall we, if it's working.
Yeah, we'll check Facebook.
Um, okay, let's have a look. Sorry, it's just going to take a second to see.
No problem.
Has it popped up for you, Mum?
Not yet. It takes a couple of seconds.
There we go. That might be, oh, maybe not. Goodness me.
Yeah, see, just anyway, we're recording so we
Okay,
can,
so it's not working. It must be blocked again.
yeah, we can just upload it after.
Well, I'm recording it, so
Yeah,
we'll send, yeah.
let's start.
Because I don't know why it does that. It just blocked. I've put all this stuff in, but still, it worked last week, and then this week, nothing.
Yeah,
Because you're working for the light is why it's
yeah.
doing it.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, let's get started. It only took us 10 minutes to figure that out, and it still didn't work, but
It
alrighty.
happens
Well,
every time.
every time, man. Well, welcome everybody to She's of Love.
Mhm.
Today we have another new guest on, which is always such a pleasure. And today we have Joe Rosati. And you, Joe, have your own co-host your own podcast, Truth Stream. So we'll definitely send our listeners to go listen to yours because I'm like, yeah, just so resonant and so kind of on the same wavelength. I really feel that. So, yeah, I suppose I will ask you the big question that we ask everybody, and that is, what is your awakening story?
It's a great question, and we go relatively deep on Truth Stream, and also I want at some point you two will introduce yourselves to our audience as well because we want everybody to know each other, and some of the folks that watch Truth Stream I'm sure would love to know more about you two as well. I suppose where my awakening started, I ever since I was a kid, I never really bought into the whole JFK story.
Mhm.
So that was something that was that I carried for many years. And then when 911 happened, like many others, I bought into it that day. I remember that quite clearly. And then there was a film called Loose Change that came out, and there was Loose Change 1 and then 2 and then 3, and just looking at, whether it's Building 7 or the Pentagon and things not really adding up. And for me, when just a couple things don't add up, it becomes pretty clear that the story that we're being told is not the real story. And so, I didn't know what to do about that. Um, and so it another event I suppose shelved in the back of my mind. And then there was this whole COVID thing that came out. And I didn't really resonate with that either. My father was a pharmacist, and I just saw a lot of things in the medical industry that didn't add up either. And so once 2020 hit, I just started looking into different either documentaries or what have you. And the first thing that really blew my mind when I started learning about the human trafficking was Native American women would disappear. And not only was the reservation not responsible because now the women were no longer on the reservation, but since they were from the tribe or the reservation, that even though they disappeared wherever they may have disappeared, that the police were not responsible for it, that were not tribal police. And I just thought that's one of the most horribly convenient situations, and it really kind of sat with me. And then over the next few months started learning more and more about the trafficking and There's a gentleman named Gene Decode, and I actually reached out to him because there was this series of videos, the Underground Wars, and his email was at the end, and I was like, wow, he's not selling anything. He's just, stating his background and what he's seen, and then had a way for me to reach out, and I contacted him and started talking with Gene, and ended up getting in on Nicholas Vignamin's show. And from there, just things started kind of unfolding, and I watched many shows such as Vignamin and Michael Jaco and David Nino Rodriguez, and Santa Surfing to start, and then X-22 Report, was getting my father into that, and more recently, And We Know. I love LT from And We Know, and his military background and his television production skills and his editing, and also his love for our creator. So that's the kind of the cliff notes of it, and we can go down any road you want, but I thought I would kind of start it there and see where this goes from here. So
Yeah.
I think I really love that you mentioned and gave voice to, what was happening and what is still happening with all the Native American women. Because one of my best friends, we haven't talked about it on the podcast, actually, but um, one of my best friends, she's Native Canadian. And so she tells me a lot about, stuff that happens in communities and how common it is for women to go like missing on the highway. There's like a road, a famous road near her hometown that's like infamous for Native women going missing on this one highway. And it's just like this thing that just like happens. And it's insane because I feel like it would not happen to any other community, like that would never be okay in any other situation. It would be complete outrage, but like, isn't that talked about enough? And it happens everywhere in South America. So many children go missing, so many women go missing. Um, all Bali, Indonesia, millions of babies are without homes, and there's no way to track what happens. They just know that a lot of mothers, give birth and then, you don't know what happens to the babies because of the kind of societal infrastructure that's in place of like shaming women who marry or who get pregnant out of wedlock and that kind of thing. And
sure.
the they because I went to like a talk when I was in Bali about it, and yeah, they were saying that they go and give birth to these babies, and then we don't really know what happens because the mothers go back to their families and pretend that they didn't just give birth. And it's like, it happens all around the world. It's a horrible truth to what happens. And, people always want to blame the communities. People always want to blame the women or the you know, the people who are getting hurt and affected, the communities that are getting hurt by this. But it's so much deeper. It's so much, so much deeper to, just
There's more to the
what
story.
happened. Yeah, there's so much, and it's all over the world. And it was a really big part of my awakening, and one of the things that I really resonated with, because you might remember this, Mum, but we went to some like when I was quite young, we went to some talks. This was before our main spiritual awakening in 2020, and it was the first time I heard of sex trafficking because I was really I was like I think 13, 14, and I thought it was something that happened like in the middle of nowhere or like really rundown areas, really poor countries. And I found out like it happens in Sydney, like 100,000 cases a year or something insane like that. It was like an insane number, and it happens everywhere. And it's just like this thing, this infestation that no one wants to look at, no one wants to talk about.
Yeah.
So I really honor you for bringing that up because we haven't really talked about that on the podcast.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it's the reason Scott and I started TruthStream. Um,
Mm,
I can't live in that world. I had a very good childhood, um, and I'm an uncle. I'm not a father. I've not met the right woman, so I don't have any kids. I'm not married. But what that's allowed me to do is to really dig into this, and I learned a lot from my father just about um, how to treat people and empathy and some business stuff. And unfortunately, he was involved in some business deals that didn't go all that well, and they were with doctors and lawyers and people in the medical field, and he was taken advantage of. So I just started really learning about a lot of different perspectives, and then hearing about the trafficking. There's things now like Pornhub, and it just seems like as people get deeper, it's not everyone, but as people get deeper and deeper into some of these weird, I suppose, kinks, that there's a lot of professionals that are now into children, which is, and what's scary is a lot of them are actually parents. In fact,
mm,
I'm in Tacoma, Washington, and I'm not going to name any names, but someone that graduated from a local high school with my one of my brothers, worked at a school, and he was and this is what makes me believe that there is some kind of white hats or something going on behind the scenes. But they kicked his door in, and they arrested him, and he was a father of two, married, worked in the school system in IT, and I don't know what he was doing specifically, but either he was involved in sharing, selling, viewing something to some level, at a very deep level, with child porn, and he's now going to be getting the repercussions of doing so. And we're seeing a lot of that happening, a lot of takedowns, and I believe that's partly what's taking so long, if there in fact is a white hat movement, which I do believe there has to be, or we wouldn't see certain things. Like if you just look at what happened with Bud Light, and then you see these other companies a year or two later, Jaguar, what have you, going woke, and then realizing that wasn't a good business move. And then we see the most recent Cracker Barrel, how within a couple weeks they've since put the logo back, and we're seeing a massive shift in culture for seeing these agendas, and starting to learn what's happening to the children. And we just got off an interview with Laura Worley, who was unfortunately uh, a victim, as her story says, of Hillary Clinton, and was sexually trafficked. And it's pretty deep, the people that we've interviewed, and now we're seeing more and more of this come to light. And I believe this whole Epstein file thing, when you're going to tell the world who's, the society who's been running things, you can't just start off with a full banger of truth, because it's so shocking that it has to be dripped out in a way, and you have to have them wanting the truth. And just like the Democrats are now demanding the files, because I believe they think Trump is on it, in a nefarious way, that you have to get. I think we're seeing a lot of stuff put out and then taken away for a while and then put out again, just to kind of get people to start kind of going, wait a second, what's really going on here? And I believe that's really what we're watching. So, and I've been trying to explain some of this to Frank Prieb, in fact, and with the whole Operation Warp Speed.
Frank Green.
No, the Frank Prevey, who we had on the show.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay.
I
Yeah,
blanked. I heard Frank Green for a second. I was like, oh, yeah, of course. The person.
yeah,
Oh,
Frank and Debbie,
yeah.
who I met at David Martin's 12 Senses in
Yeah.
person. But wondering about what Operation Warp Speed and what we're watching there. And at least Trump is now wondering if, in fact, maybe he possibly had something from that, or he's now saying, well, let's see what's really going on. And so
Yeah.
there's so many layers to this that it's really about the greater awakening of conscious of humanity than a specific thing. So it's very multi-tiered. And what's challenging for me is the
Yeah.
conversations I have, whether it's in person or people on the show. What angle am I coming from? So my mind's constantly trying to read the room and what I can and can't talk about without throwing someone completely off. And not that I know exactly, but I know enough to know that the what's on the surface is not the only story, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And I think from
I'm
a
very,
spiritual, sorry, Juliet, I think from a
no,
spiritual
no,
point of view, part of the reasoning of this not knowing where thing like the tiered thing and not knowing how to read the room or like what can we say, what can't we say, I think the deeper spiritual part of that is being okay with not knowing certain things and kind of like realizing that when we feel into something and we feel that there's something not right there, we may not ever know why it feels off, but the fact that it feels terrible to us and that we're like, this is wrong, whatever it is that's going on in front of me, I don't really understand it, but I know that it's wrong, is enough. It's enough for us to say, I don't want to have anything to do with that, or I'm going to walk away from this, or, I need to shed light on that thing, or whatever it is. You walk down a path to discover more, or you turn around and go, nah, I don't want to have anything to do with it.
yeah.
And I know for me personally, I have learned over the last 5 years to sit back and observe things before I jump in and say, oh, well, that's that, or this is this, because I really don't know at the end of the day.
Right.
And I may never know. We may never have the full story, but I'm okay with that because what I'm seeing and the people that we're talking to, like you, Joe, everybody's in agreement that whatever it is that is going on is not right. It's not for humanity. Humanity is suffering because of it.
Right.
Yeah, I think it's time to, I'm interested to see these, Epstein files to get released because it's been so long now. I feel like it's getting ridiculous. Like, come on, show us. Like we've been waiting since what, 20, I don't even know. And yeah, I'm interested to see what comes of light from that. And I don't know. I think when you get to that level of power in the top 1%, you have connections, people. Um I think there's people, a lot of mess there, people protecting people. I'm just interested to see how it goes and when it's going to be shown to the public because yeah, we deserve to know. It's a complete it just, I don't know, I think it sets the tone for everything else because it's such a deep rooted problem with
Mm,
the higher, especially that top 1% and, how they abuse underage people and, all the horrible sex rings, connections to the Vatican,
Right.
celebrities, and all the abuse. And it's not even just like, I mean, yeah, of course, it's the sexual abuse and trafficking that happens, but it's so much deeper than that. It represents this stuff with Epstein. Like, my take on it is like, how on earth does these people have the right to hide this or like keep this and not show the truth? Because I agree with what you're saying, Joe, about, it's such a big truth. We have to let things out small and small because otherwise everyone will just go into utter chaos and mayhem. But
Yeah.
there's a certain point in which it's like, well, who gets to decide,
yeah.
especially with something so deeply, such a deep wound for everyone, but also for women and like a lot of any type of not that it's just about women, it's about everyone, but it's such a deep wound that we carry ancestrally, getting abused in these ways. And it's like I feel the weight of this. It's like, how can you keep this from us? Like we deserve to know, we have the right to know. So I'm looking forward to the day that it comes out, because I know people where it's too big now. They can't
Yeah,
not
Right.
show
everybody
it.
knows
It's
about it.
just
Yeah.
everybody
Right.
knows, everybody's demanding it. We're getting louder and louder and louder. So it's only a matter of time. And I also, I don't know, I think the politics of it all on the world stage is just such. I watch people and I'm like, guys, this isn't the point. Like, let's go look at ourselves. Like, let's be with ourselves. Let's choose what we believe, because no matter what side you choose, it is not, I promise you, it does not reflect, the inner truth that you have. Just live out your inner truth and the world will, change for you. That's my kind of view on life. Like, I don't think I can handle waiting around for big truths to come out in the world. I'm just more, because I used to get really like angry about it, waiting. Like, oh, when is this going to come out? When are they going to finally expose these people? They deserve to be exposed. And now I've kind of got shifted and changed and looked more internally and been like, what's my truth?
Right.
Instead of
Yeah.
what's the truth out there, let's look inside for my truth. And it's the first time where I felt fully fulfilled and like not needing this external
Yeah.
thing to fulfill my what I need, like the truth that I've been seeking is like, oh no, it's actually
I think that's a big
here.
part of what you're speaking to is a big part of it. I'm glad we're bringing this conversation up because it's people are going to get to a point, and I think the beauty of all this is people are going to realize that we're really in a spiritual battle, that Satan God are real, and you have to pick one side or the other. And that's a lot because even as a kid that I grew up going to, private schools, I here's part of my awakening and part of my realization, I suppose. I remember when I first started learning about the Bible, I thought, well, if that's really real and if that's going on, I'll be in that fight. But this just sounds like a bunch of folklore. Well, in the last 5 years, I've really realized how real it is. And a big part of that has been the conversations that I was privy to in person with Dr. David Martin, with Pastor Dave Bryan from the Church of Glad Tidings, and the fact that Pastor Dave got David Martin to go to the Church of Glad Tidings in Yuba City, California. And David wanted nothing to do with churches. But David is I mean, to watch David for 4 days in person, download information and share that with us, I've never seen someone's mind work like that. It was absolutely incredible. And of course, I would have said yes to your show anyway, but knowing that, Kim's been on the show and the Martins have been a part of this, it was an absolute no brainer. But it's just been amazing to learn how real this spiritual battle is, and of course, then starting the
Mm.
show. But there's no doubt anymore. We are literally in a spiritual battle, and it's a lot of when people who are atheists are going to be tested. Well, wait, I have to choose between this and this. I didn't believe in either. I mean, so that's part of the unfolding because you're having to uproot
Yeah.
something from such a deep level, and they've done a really really good job of getting most of humanity to even think that God and Satan aren't even real. I mean, that's a heck of a thing. I mean, the greatest trick the devil pulled was to convince you that he's not real.
Yeah.
So
That is
that's
so true. That's been part of my awakening because I grew up Catholic, going to Catholic school, going to church, listening to my parents talking about their beliefs. And I I went to a progressive convent school, and we were told that the stories in the Bible were parables. They were ways of telling people the difference between right and wrong, that they weren't necessarily true happenings. Okay. So, like, Adam and Eve weren't really Adam and Eve. That's just a parable to tell you how humanity started, things like that. So, I already had this idea in my mind that there are certain stories in the Bible that may not be exactly 100% true of how they happened. And so I've had this seed of, well, I don't know, that, that was written in a book. I don't know where that came from, really.
Right.
So in 2020, when I started to really see what was going on, and the children, and like the children part of my awakening really rocked me. I think I cried for 3 days straight.
Your knees. It's
Yeah, it
just
really did. It did a number on me. And I started to realize what you're talking about, Joe, is that good and evil actually really exists.
right.
It's really real, that this idea that Satan isn't real, and that love prevails, and, this romanticized idea of religion, that, God is all encompassing, and he's just love, and all of this stuff. It was, and Satan doesn't exist. It was very naive. It was like a children's story, really. In 2020, I started to realize, no, actually there are sides.
Right.
And it is here now on this planet where we live. It's happening all around us all the time. And I saw a documentary back in my 20s. So this is 30 years ago now. I saw a documentary.
You're old, Mum.
What was that? What did you say, Juliet?
I said you're old, Mum.
I am. I'm getting up there.
30 years ago. No, I'm kidding. I'm so
Well,
sorry.
it's
I
true.
couldn't help it.
But yeah, I saw this documentary, and it was set in LA, and it was this documentary team that went to the homeless people, and they discovered that there was this legend amongst the homeless in LA that they presented as a legend, but it was actually a true story, that there was kids that were homeless on the streets going missing down in the tunnels under LA, all the unused train tracks and the tunnel, like all the transport tunnels under LA. And I remember watching that and thinking, this is bullshit. There's no way that this could be real. And I shut that down, and I never thought about it again. And then in 2020, I saw, I can't remember the name of it, but it's quite a famous documentary that came out in 2020. It was a lady who created it, and it had sequels to it. It was like a
Oh, the
series of,
fall of the cabal.
yeah, that one, The Fall of the Cabal. I remember watching that, and I realized that that documentary was true, and that there is a very real part of the world that traffics children. And it crushed me. And I just went into a complete depression, and I cried for 3 days. And something inside me just said, Claude, what are you going to do about it? How are you going to show up in the world now to do your part? And so when Julia, and I've got terrible fear of public speaking, terrible fear,
You're
and
doing wonderful.
and a fear of technology. And Juliet came to me and she said, Mum, we need to do a podcast. Let's start this podcast. And I just went, yeah, we've got to do it. And it
Beautiful.
was the sadness that I felt, that great responsibility I felt, that I needed to get over those things, because this was bigger than me. This was so important.
Absolutely.
And that's how we started.
Right. So, I mean, we have a lot in common.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's the thing. It's so, because that's the thing. For someone to watch, and I think that's why it helps to do, either the drip drip or little clips, or just, everyone has to have, and this is another reason why it's taking long. And News Treason is a show that we've been on, with Dave and Mark, and Dave brought something up. Everyone has to have their own aha moment.
Yeah.
They have to have where they just see that something is off. And so you can't tell people, you have to show them, and then they have to connect with it somehow.
That's
And
right.
but once you do, your life is never the same. When you really realize, okay, we're living in a lie, they harm children, and the people that are making rules, making us pay taxes, they use that money and they do god awful things. I'm like, I've always been a rebel. And I was like, wow, I'm really going to be a little rebel now. Like, the gloves are off. And I did it, you know, without really, I just felt, I mean, I'll go back. So I was running my own podcast before Truth Stream, and I interviewed a police officer, named, his name's escaping me right now because I didn't even know I would be bringing this up. But he basically told the governor of, Washington State to kiss his butt. And I asked him on our interview, can you talk about the human trafficking in Washington State? Robert LeMay is his name. And he talked about it. He talked about the trafficking at the Super Bowl. And he basically, 6 weeks after the interview, he would have never went to a hospital for COVID. But 6 weeks later, he was in the hospital, and I reached out to another woman that I had interviewed that was a respiratory therapist, and she said that basically what she learned is he was taken out. He was brought into the hospital with COVID, put on a breathing machine, respirator, and given remdesivir.
Yeah.
And they took him out. Now, I don't know if it was specifically because of that show, but I don't think it really helped him. But he said, be careful with what you do with this. And I just had it primarily on BitChute, but it had over 6,000 views. And it scared the hell out of me for about, a month or two. And then we finally started Truth Stream, and I started finding my tribe, Lewis Herms from Screw Big Gov, and now David Martin and Pastor Dave Bryan, and now we have an army. But when you're by yourself and you're talking, and I'm like, I was reaching out to 3 different, writers in the local Tribune about human trafficking. Not one of them wanted to write about it. All 3 of them had gotten the what, and none of them are around anymore. One in his 40s, one in his 50s, and one in his 60s. And I'm not saying that to scare anybody about the what, but it's not what they said it was. So now I feel I even have more of a duty, because some of the mainstream writers that were good people, they were just very misinformed, they were very indoctrinated, they were very brainwashed. I feel it's my job to speak on behalf of them as well. And I don't have, I'm not bought and paid for. No one tells Scott and I what we can and can't have, on our show. We have no one overseeing what we're doing, or our salaries are not dependent upon that. And we've lived very frugally only until recently with some of our sponsors, because the priority is the story and the children. It wasn't to do a podcast to make money. Yeah, we need to pay our bills, but we would rather get by and pay our bills and have the heart that we've always had than ever change that to make, to make money. So yeah, I think it's really, really important right now to be sharing this work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Did you want to say something, Juliet?
I suppose I was going to ask what is ahead for you now. What direction, what are your intentions for the future? Where do you want to take Truth Stream, or just you know, I feel like awakening stories aren't just at the beginning, they're continuous and they never finish until we die.
Yeah.
I
Right.
think enlightenment is death. So, what's in the future for your awakening journey, I suppose? Where do you want to go?
Right. Well,
Yeah,
great
with
question.
everything.
I don't even know if I've really been asked that before, which is pretty compelling considering we talk about all kinds of things.
Yeah.
Well, you know, my background was, as I emailed Claudia earlier, was, you know, I've done everything from book night clubs, to perform and write music and act. And what was interesting is having been an actor in a lot of independent films, and primarily local, the last thing I wanted to do when I heard about the kids was act. I mean, it really, and then you start hearing about your idols, if you will, being part of this. I mean, it's been very, very challenging for me, to learn about Bono and who he was associated with, you know, the WEF and all of that. So that was really, really confronting for me. So um, I'm in the studio. I'm working on a new song. It's actually about the children disappearing, but it's done with an eloquence to it instead of going into heavy details. Um, I I'm playing in Ireland. I'm doing an event in Ireland on the 20th in with Mark Atwood. So I'm starting to I recently performed in Costa Rica. So I'm starting to want to play music again. And so I do see that, to be part of events where awareness is continued to be raised, where I'm bringing my music into those events and maybe helping curate and put together some kind of, maybe an event where there's music and there's David Martin and there's Dr. Christiane Northrup and maybe Pastor Dave. I don't know. I have so many amazing connections now that now I get to use my background and all the things I've been through to make something really beautiful. And that's the other thing. I don't think there's any mistakes now. I mean, for many times I'm like, why is this so hard? Why can't I just do something I love and get paid for it and just flourish in the world? And I think the answer is I had to keep coming up against these obstacles so I'd learn something else and then learn something else. And I think that's a big part of it. And now it forced me to reach out and create an amazing tribe. So I think the future, I think we're through most of the hard part, but I think my future and many people's future that are in this movement are absolutely luminous, incredible, and unlike anything we could have pictured before. So if
Mm.
that makes sense.
Yeah,
High
So
five to that.
yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
That's a
that's where
good
I
note to
think.
end on, Jay.
Yeah, we've reached 40, well, not quite 45 minutes because it took us so long to
Yeah.
figure out the,
I think we're about 35,
but
but nice to keep them kind of well. Just because I'm going to put this on Truth Stream,
Hmm.
uh, can
yeah.
you ladies just tell my viewers, Scott and I's viewers, a little bit about your background, and which you have, but a little bit about your channel and what you represent and where to find it? That would be wonderful.
Yeah, sure. Do you want to do that, Juliet, or do you want me to do it?
Yeah, I can do that.
Go on then.
Um, so um me and Claudia is my mum, so we're a mother-daughter team, and we've been running this podcast every week for the past 3 years now. And yeah, it started at a just basically wanting to give other people a platform to tell their stories and give more voices to the community instead of this big focus on, um, I guess
Mainstream.
a lot of the stories yeah, the mainstream stories that we hear over and over again. And, we wanted to be part of the healing of the collective and part of the, that good side that we're, in this very polarity focused battle that's going on.
Right.
Yeah, so we both woke up. Well, I feel like I've kind of been a weird alien child,
Yeah. Yeah.
my whole life, pretty
She
much.
was born awake, definitely.
I was, yeah, but mum, what like we all kind of had our big main awakening all together in 2020 when we realized, oh yeah, so there's some weird stuff going on, and this is all kind of a lie. Um, and yeah, I suppose I've been traveling the world for the past 2 years and continuously doing the podcast. I'm only 22, and mum's been just we kind of just always been connected throughout this journey, and I don't know, you can see how we've grown from the start to who
Yeah.
we are now.
How did you
It's a very big.
184,000 subscribers on Facebook? Holy cow.
Yeah.
Yeah, mum can answer that one.
Yeah, that's
Really?
me.
What's your secret? Oh my God.
So the secret really is connecting with people on a level. I just started to put out content that spoke to me and it connected. So really, I met a need within the Facebook community that spoke to a lot of people, and we get so much feedback from people saying you're speaking my heart. The things that you share are speaking to me on so many levels. I've experienced such hardship. People out there, I really feel in my experience in our group is called She's of Love. It's on Facebook. We're also
Yeah.
on
Oh, sorry, I
Spotify.
should have definitely said that.
That's all right, Juliet.
So-
We're on Spotify and YouTube as well. You can find us there at She's of Love. And but Facebook is really the hub, and it's people are they're waking up to the truth of the world, but they're also waking up to themselves and the pain that they're feeling in their own lives. And we haven't been taught from a young age how to create boundaries, healthy boundaries in our lives. And I think that's what people are craving right now. They're craving the common sense. They're craving boundaries. They're craving their lives to be organized, and they want to stop hurting. They want to stop relationships that are taking from them rather than a two-way street, that sort of thing. So our Facebook group is really a resting place for people to come be heard, share their experiences, which is what we do on the podcast too, and just really just get some understanding for where they're at. Really, that's
Yeah.
all it is. It's not really a big like secret or anything. It's just that people want to be heard. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Well, and I think it's funny you said 3 years. That's how long Scott and I have been on doing Truth Stream. And I was so happy to crack 1,000 subscribers on our
Yeah,
Truth
we
Stream.
were too.
We are so, I mean, we are so shadow banned, but whatever you're doing is beautiful. And I love the mother daughter component of it
Yeah.
because it reaches, the generations, and it can help both, what if one's watching Juliet and then they're like, well, wait a second, I want my mom to see this, and you got to see Claudia, Juliet. So it really helps bridge the
Yes.
right. Do you think that helps a
I
lot?
really, yeah. Oh, I love that about, the podcast, because I think it's really important to show the difference in view because of
Yeah.
how different we've grown up. There are things that, well, we disagree on. There are things that we see very differently on, and not even just disagree on, but just like we agree and what's the word where you like are on the same page, but in for different reasons, and we have different perspectives that merge and flow together. And I think that my generation is the one that is going to kind of be the leaders in a sense of, we're the ones that are really going to have to pull through and
Show up.
push forward, show up.
Yeah.
And so I feel very, like I have a responsibility in being living that truth of being the version of myself that carries the earth forward in the direction that it needs to go into, because the world is really hurting, and by the time that my generation gets to the point where we are the world leaders, it's going to be that, like, real, it's already at that point, but even it's going to be even more so the more that we get to those ages where we're in the boss roles and in
Yeah.
the so I don't know. I feel like it's a really good combination of, I always listen to mum and listen to what she has to say. She's very wise and very, got some always beautiful advice no matter what. And yeah, it's just a really good, we work really well together, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the reason it works is because the respect avenue is a two-way street. There's respect
Mm,
that's coming from Juliet, and I respect her also. I respect her opinion. I respect that she's the future of this world. I respect that she's autonomous and she has her own mind. And if we disagree, that's okay. We don't have to see
mm,
eye to eye on everything. As long as the bigger picture that we're looking at looks very similar, we have a similar mission in life. We want the best for the world, and we want to leave it better than we found it. Like, as long as that's
mm,
our mission together, then the rest of it is just details. It doesn't really matter.
I resonate so much with that. Yeah, I think of it as like leave no trace camping, and
Yeah.
I also feel, with the arts, and not that, I mean, of course people should still be doing art because you can't just focus on the human trafficking. But I brought this up a few times. Right now, it feels like the world has let's say the world were a fish tank and the water's dirty, and the dirty and how it's dirty is the human trafficking. It's really hard to celebrate things until we clean that water, and that's, the children, and then it's going to make the other things so much better, because it's really hard to, it's almost like the kids being trafficked are always in the back of my mind, and because it's so much more horrible than any movie that I could ever, that I've ever seen. Or I don't even watch horror films anymore. um so that was one point. But had one last question for the both of you. When Claudia, when you saw the Fall of the Cabal, did you see it first before Juliet, and then how much later did Juliet watch it, and have you guys awakened and then pulled each other towards different things that you've awakened with, or who really awakened first, if you will? I believe I kind of know, but please go ahead if you could answer that.
Yeah. So Juliet, she would come to me constantly from childhood. I think she was about 10 or 12 when she first started coming to me and showing me videos on the internet of things like September 11. Mum, why are they saying this stuff about September 11? And it was like this documentary about the building and how it couldn't have been a plane that hit it. It was a controlled detonation and things like that. The way,
yeah.
like, there was science behind what they were saying. And she was really concerned. And she came to me, she was like, what are that? Like, you were in September 11, because I was a flight attendant at the time.
Oh,
And I was in London when it happened. And so I saw the aviation industry change after September 11. I saw it all firsthand. And I mean, airlines collapsed. Like, an Australian airline went out of business because of it. And friends lost their jobs. And like, it was just chaos and mayhem at the time. So my focus wasn't on the truth of what had happened. My focus had been on my personal experience of
Yeah.
the aftermath.
Yeah.
And so when she came to me and showed me these videos, I was like, wow, like, that actually that's kind of strange. but I dismissed it. I was like, oh, I don't know, maybe put that on the back burner. Like, I don't know how to answer that one. And then she would come to me with the moon landing, and she would come to me with other things like, Mum, what do you think about this? Like, it seems like they're lying. And so for years,
And mum was like, "Oh my God, what is this
yeah,
girl
I
doing?
was
What am
thinking,
I,
it's my
what do I have
child
to
a
deal with?"
conspiracy theorist, you know.
Yeah.
And but
Answer
I
was
didn't
yes.
but I didn't judge her, right? I didn't judge her. She was young. She was an internet child. She was, she had access to information that I didn't know
She's a
about.
little star seed, is what she is.
Yeah. And I didn't, because I wasn't on the internet that much back then. I was more of a TV person because of my generation. I wasn't really, I didn't really know the stuff that she was talking about. And then, so this kind of chugged along in the background for years. And then 2020 hit, and we had some friends who were fully awake, fully. She had been in intelligence in the Australian Army.
Oh,
And so she knew inside information about things that we had no clue, we had not been privy to. So the way they lived their lives, the way they conducted themselves was very different to normal people that we knew apart from them. And so that raised questions, right? So we would ask them questions. We were on a spiritual journey with them. They were teaching us spirituality, but all this truth stuff was in the background. They weren't really talking about it because of what you said, Joe, previously. You can't tell people about it. They have to discover it for themselves. They have to have their own awakening. And so there were just signs with these people. There were signs. And I knew that the stuff that they would talk about had weight because of the information they had been privy to years earlier in the Australian Army. So if they said to me something like, don't judge Donald Trump so harshly because of the media, I would go, okay, there must be something in that. But they would never tell me
right,
directly, oh, Donald Trump is a white hat or a good guy or whatever. Like they
right.
would never
It
do that.
planted those seeds. Yep,
Exactly. And then
yep.
2020 came along, and I saw it was actually a friend of mine who sent me, and she wasn't awake at the time. She sent me a video of David Martin. He was very instrumental in giving me the facts of the situation. And she also sent me a video of David Icke on the Rose show on,
Yeah, I know who you're talking. Yes, I think I know what you're talking about.
yeah,
Oh,
something Rose. The dude that was interviewing was, I don't I don't know his first name, but that channel actually got shut down not long after that David Icke
oh.
video interview. And it was that David Icke interview that clenched it for me. That was the key in the lock that opened the lock. So up until that point, things were like, I don't know, I don't know, I don't know. But the dots all connected when I saw that. Brian Rose, I think his name is Brian Rose, that interview on YouTube. And then I got Juliet to watch it. I got
London
my
Real.
husband,
London Real.
London Real, that's it.
Yes. Yeah, we do know a lot. Okay.
Yes, that's the one.
Yeah. I was
And
looking
then,
it up, but once you said Brian Rose, yeah, I was trying to think of his last name. Anyway, keep going.
yeah. So I showed that interview to Juliet and I showed it to my husband, and they it all clicked into place for both of them as well, because we'd been on the same journey with these friends of ours with the internet. Juliet had been coming to me for years, showing me these truths And so this was what we just went, oh my God, that's what it is. And it all
It was
fell
almost
into
like thinking
place.
Juliet was the woodpecker, and then finally that was the thing that just knocked the whole tree down. It kind of broke open your
Yes.
wow.
Yeah. But it was kind of like me being the mum of the family. Once I had opened my eyes, everybody else was like, okay, this is real.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's an incredible story. And
Yeah.
it's so cool to it's kind of like co-hosting
Yeah.
because we
Maybe
learn
we should
so
do
much
an
more.
episode together.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do shows with other hosts of shows, and it's really more like a conversation
Yeah.
than quote unquote an interview, because it's just, I mean, what we're really doing is we're opening up a computer and we're having a what could be a private conversation, and we're sharing it with, I
That's
don't know
right.
how many folks end up watching out of your 284,000. Hello everybody. But no, it's pretty incredible. And I think people would rather have, I mean, think of how many newscasters can even do a show without their scripts, right? So here we are just having a conversation, an organic conversation. And I think people would rather watch something like this than some movie that took $100 million to create.
That's right.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Wow.
yeah.
Thank
Well,
you
you
so
guys,
much,
Well, thank
Joe.
you so much.
yeah, thank you. We'll have to do this again.
Yeah, I would love to.
I don't want to
Yeah.
close. I almost feel
You
like
stole
I
yeah, you stole the words right out of my mouth. I was going to ask if you wanted to come on again.
Yeah.
Oh, I'd be honored. Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, and I
Okay,
have
we'll be in touch.
some
Amazing.
great guests to also share with you ladies. And I've already mentioned Mark Abrams from News Trees, and
Yes.
brilliant
No, I
soul.
mean I'm talking with him via email, so yeah, he'll be on too.
40 years of mainstream media background that
Amazing.
and he's finally making up for it by doing what he's doing now. So we're not here by accident, ladies.
No.
It's very divine that we're talking. So
Yeah.
yeah,
All
awesome.
right,
Well, thank
everyone.
you so
Thank you.
much. And thank you, everybody, for listening. And we'll see you next week.
Bye.
Bye.